Evening all. Wednesday night, it's the weekend debrief. We are back after what has to be another fairly hectic weekend. Thanks everyone for joining me. I think this is the most I've had at the start of a session. So hopefully it's going to be another enjoyable little review of what went on at the 12th scale nationals. Lots to talk about, so we might potentially overrun half an hour. I try to keep it half an hour so that you don't all get bored with my inane waffle. But so as all of you will know, the Tamworth National was back after a 2-year hiatus. Don't know why. There was something going around. There's a bug or something going around. So we didn't go racing there. It hasn't been there for a couple of years. And wow, what a weekend Tamworth put on. I think it would be amiss of me to not mention Rich Norris, Matt Lax and Peter Lax for their incredible efforts over the weekend. They have a bit of a skeleton staff by the looks of things at Tamworth Car Club. And the amount of prep that they had to go through putting the track up. We pitted in 2 different rooms, so there was a theatre room and another pitting area, and then the track. We weren't pitting in the track, but they did an incredible job laying on such a spectacular event, and I think the track, well, in all the years I've been going to nationals, comfortably the best and my favourite track of all of them. Not because I did well necessarily, but it was more narrow than ever, and I think that played into the hands of the grip. Actually, the Tamworth I've been to the last few times, or the last few times that I've been to Tamworth, the track has been incredibly low after sort of the carpet being packed away for COVID and restrictions and all that kind of stuff. And it's not really built, and it was much the same really at the weekend. But because the track was super narrow, obviously you didn't have this massive gap between the line on the track and the barrier itself. So it really did work in its favour that obviously if cars are slightly going off of line, they're actually pushing the crap and the marbles of the foam tyres actually right up against the barriers. So actually, unless you drove a long way offline, like up against the barrier, you didn't actually experience too much of a drop-off of grip. But of course, it did make it tighter for everyone, potentially slower cars. And I put myself in that because I was having to let people through my qualifying heats, getting out their way and running into the marbles and stuff. But that, as I say, because the track was way more narrow, it certainly played into the racer's favour. If you're watching, let us know where you're watching from, who you are, any questions you have. I'm going to be talking about a bit of setup as we go along. But I will just keep going until I see sort of some questions up. I'll just waffle on about what I want to talk about. There's no script, as ever. I always, when I sit down, I always thought, I must make a note of just talking about this, that and the other. But, it's shooting from the hip is always the best way to go, I find. Anyway, so the track was absolutely incredible. I actually did a little track layout, but if you guys have been watching it on the feed, and hopefully the feed was a good one this weekend, I streamed it straight off of my phone, and I think the quality was really good. Had a good vantage point on the track as well. So you hopefully had some really good insight into the racing. There was plenty of you that were watching come the finals, which was great to see. And the viewing over the weekend got a couple of thousand views of all of the videos that I put up. So that's really good. Obviously, Tamworth were streaming it as well on their own channel. So if you haven't subscribed to those guys, head over there. It's TRRAC is their YouTube channel, so check that out. They covered all of their racing. They got a GT12 GP going on over the next month or so. I can't remember when it is. I think it's in March time. David Foster from Spain is checking us out. Welcome along, David. Nice to see you checking in. So the track, as I say, was a technical one. Our friend, the show's friend, Tony Wade, called it the labyrinth. It was a bit of a maze, and when you kind of turned up there and looked at the track, it was hard to see a way out. With all the twists and turns, it was incredible. But ironically, like all of these things, they end up flowing, and you find a way around the early stages of the weekend. You're always taking your time to find your feet with the lines and the tracks. I was very fortunate enough on Saturday, because of the first weekend that I did, the first national. I managed to be in the top heat, so that was my first time being in the top heat. I think I was in there with Dave Spashit, Andy Smith, Matt Vara, Adam Mackman, Jody Sharrett was in there as well. So I think there was 9 of us in the top heat, which was great. Mark Stiles was in there, of course, as well. So it was good to sort of get involved, and I stuck to my guns in the first heat. Practice on Saturday, I went round and did my full 8 minutes on half throttle, just pulling over, letting the guys come through. My thoughts and theories, for those of you that don't know, is I want to make sure that I stick it on the right line. I don't want to be driving fast because the grip is super low. If Finley Williams is watching, you know what I'm saying, Finn. Don't be giving it full beans on the on your first run. So I just hate whacking my car, and in the low grip, I think if you're trying to go fast and hit apexes and lines, well, you're learning something that you shouldn't be learning. So I gave it half throttle all the way round, stuck to my guns, didn't feel like I needed to do anything different because they're in the top heat. And it was great. But I have to say, qualifying on the Saturday didn't really go my way. I was 11th. No, I wasn't. I was 15th in qualifying on the Saturday. So I was, after round 1, I was 5th overall, and I struggled really. Grip didn't really come up. I was still experiencing my inside rear wheel lifting, so the car felt really nervous. Coming off the end of the straight, it was fine. And then there was a bit of a switchback coming back towards the driver's stand, where you go through a little chicane and then a right-hander away from us towards the straight. And as I was loading that front left-hand wheel, that inside rear right was lifting, and it was making it exceptionally difficult to drive. And then there was a sweeper coming sort of back on itself, where it loaded the front right-hand wheel this time and lifted the back left inside wheel. And again, the car was really hard to drive. So in round 4, so in qualifying didn't go so well, and it was 15th overall, which I was pretty pissed about, to be honest. I was a bit disappointed with that. I'd done a practice day at Midlands Raceway. Those of you that might have seen it or not seen it, working with cones all day and just trying to hit some lines and get dialed in. And I felt really confident going into it, but just couldn't quite get the car right. And so in the final, I was qualified. I was 15th place, so I was like 5th on the grid, whatever that is. And but I put 20k more oil in the side of my car, just to slow the roll down, so that I could keep the rear wheel on the ground, and it worked beautifully. I'd been fiddling around with various things all day, didn't quite get it, but stupidly, something so obvious I didn't do. And it was funny, I did the installation lap. James Stewart was was BQ. He narrowly missed out on an A final, and typical in the middle of the pack in the final is just the worst place to be. Be up the front or down the back, best place, but don't be in the middle, man. So as usual, I was in the epicenter of the first bend crash, and I was last. But in my warm-up lap, and the first 2 laps, well, no, actually, really, just my installation lap, the car felt completely different. And I thought, oh, now this is better. I've got a chance here. I knew I had pace. And even though I was parked up on the first bend and James Stewart was 3/4 of a lap up on me, I knew the car was good. And so with 30 seconds to go, I had come all the way up into second place, managing to go through the field, and caught James Stewart up. And James got caught up in back markers going onto the straight, and I got past him, but I thought that is not how I want to win this race. So I backed off. I let James come back through because not his fault getting caught up in a back marker, and I didn't want to profiteer from that. So I let him back through. Then we had another lap around, and he made a bit of a hiccup with 20 seconds to go. Back end fell out. If you're watching James reveal yourself, and I took the win of the B final, which was great. I was really pleased with how I applied myself there, and which made me super happy with my sort of resolve in the final and the resolve to not back down making changes for the final, because ultimately, again, goes back to that mindset that I'm not happy with winning a B final. I'm not happy with sitting middle of the pack in an A final. I'm there to win the A final and do as well as I possibly can. So every single run is an opportunity to improve yourself, improve the car, and hopefully learn something. And I did that, and I'm really pleased I did that. So without that change of going from 20k to 40k in the side of the car, I without doubt wouldn't have won that B final. So it worked in my favour this time. So on the first day, just to give you an idea, Dave Spashett was TQ, Matt Vara, Adam Mackman, Aaron Morley, Mark Stiles, Sam Colt made it into the A final, which was great for him, and deep into the A final as well. I mean, Sam did a great job. Ben Vincent, then Mark Jewett. Mark made a nice comeback. He was in the lower heat. He wasn't in the top heat, and we had a discussion actually the week before, or the round before at Eastbourne, and he felt that being in the top heat was a bit of an obstacle because of letting people through. I don't see it that way personally. I want to fill myself or surround myself with better drivers because I believe that they pull you along. So but he felt otherwise, and it proved in this case, Mark managed to get himself into the A final, which was great to see. Jody Sherratt again did a sterling job. He was 9th in the A final, and Andy Smith, who really sad to see Andy battle with his car over the weekend. He clearly wasn't happy, but he managed to get in 10th spot in the A final. I think it's important to mention Finn did Finley Williams is an F2 driver. He did a 34 lap in a 4:87.66. So that would have put him 7th in the A final. And for me, him being an F2, not that I want to go on about it again, is just he's learning nothing. I mean, he's learning nothing. I mean, it's no two ways about it. I know, but there's a new car and he switched teams, all that kind of thing. I mean, it's getting absolutely nothing out of running F2. He's not. He can, of course, pit his times against the best drivers there, but I'll give you an analogy. If you go out and play golf, and I'll do a golf analogy, sorry for that, but if I go out and play at a golf course that just hosted the Open, everybody knows what the Open is, the following day, and it's exactly the same, course layout, etc. But because there's nobody there, I could go out and shoot 65 and tell myself that I could have shot that in the open. The reality is, the fact that there were no crowds and there were no golfers there changes my complete mindset. And so Finn might be doing super well, and I'm sure next season he will go equally as quick. But right now, as much as he knows that he qualified 7th in the A final on his current time, there was nothing on the line. It was a free go at it. So again, I will be putting forward a proposal to stop the F gradings next season, and I've already had a few people come up to me and say that they would second that. So I'm definitely going to be going to the AGM, and I'm definitely going to be putting that forwards, because this F grading needs to stop, man, because it's just ridiculous. There's 20 drivers. So anyway, I don't want to go on about that because I've already talked about that. So Saturday was positive. It was a good day, and I walked away on the back of it feeling very confident going into Sunday. So let's take David Foster says, "Hi Stu, great result on a tricky track. What did you change throughout the course of the weekend, and what setup did you decide upon for the Sunday final?" So throughout the day, I changed shock angle. I changed the height on my side links. So I lifted the front of the side link up. I changed my battery position. I changed the length of time. No, I didn't change the length of time on my additive. What else did I change? Side spring tension, and I changed oil. So yeah, 5 things I changed during the day, and I went into the Sunday with exactly the same setup as I did as I had it on the Saturday. So I ended up on that setup, and I don't believe I changed too much on the Sunday. I just drove a little bit better, and as usual I was flicking through motors, and there's a lot I want to talk about in terms of additive after I've round up my experience, because I think there's a lot to be said about the additive situation and what's going on and what I witnessed going on around me. So good evening, Ant, nice to have you with us. Happy tea, everyone. If you've got any further questions, feel free to wing them over. Happy to answer anything that I can. So the Sunday, I was now dropped down a heat, and my heat was still fairly punchy. I had Sam Colt in it. Sam is a feisty driver, and he does not take prisoners, and he comes out the blocks really, really quick. That was certainly something that I battled with all weekend long. My car at the start, I found my car really hard to drive, and I started putting green additive on. That was the other thing that I changed, David. I started putting green additive on round. Actually, I did it for the final on Saturday, and it settled the car a little bit. Not completely, but definitely the side oils definitely made the car easier to drive to start with. But I still experienced the same thing on the Sunday. The car was definitely a little hard to drive at the start of each run, and it was funny actually. Charlie Colby's dad, I don't know his name unfortunately. His dad came up to me and said, "Your car's really quick, like after 3 or 4 minutes," and it's because it was just so difficult to start with, and so I was kind of letting everyone go at the start of the run, and then 2 or 3 minutes the car settled in, and then I could pick up the pace a bit and push it. So it was quite an interesting situation really. So qualifying, again, I was right on the cusp. I was definitely qualifying better. The car was much better on the Sunday, but I was right on the cusp of being in the A final. I think in round 3, I think I might have been 7th in qualifying going into the last run. and I knew that Charlie Colby was going really well, and Sam Colt was going well. Andy Smith hadn't had a run, and so there was a few people that could definitely kind of knock me down. Jody Sherritt hadn't had a good run as well, so I knew that there was a few people that could edge me down. And so in round 4, I went out because I had moved up. I went out ahead of Sam Colt, and he was coming out the blocks really, really fast, and I was trying my hardest to push the car at the start, and Sam got a bit hasty to start with, made a mistake behind me, gave me a bit of breathing room, and then I was off and running then, and he then made another mistake. He knew he needed to go faster, and that little bit of maturity needed by Sam just to give himself a bit more time, let the car settle in and drive, and not be too eager to get going. But I hear things being talked about, and one of the things I heard Trevor talking to Sam on Sunday, telling Sam what he needed to do laps wise to get into the A final. I think that's a dangerous game to play. I think you start putting goals and objectives in mind. The only thing that you can do is get the car set up as well as you possibly can and drive as well as you possibly can, and whatever that looks like in terms of laps is what it is. And I think you need to be cautious of that. I think personally, putting goals in I need 26 laps or whatever it might be. That just puts more pressure on and makes you make mistakes at the start, I think. So he made a mistake. Jody had a good run, and he was in my run, and so Finley was in my heat, and I could see Finn and Jody were ahead of me, and I could see Jody going really well, so he was definitely going to make it by the looks of things. I was just going slowly, which I'll talk about, but that's the reason why. And Finn was on the tail of Jody all the way around. I could see Finn following Jody all the way around in round 4 on Sunday. But Finn, he stayed back. He kept a gap between Jody and Finn, and he stayed back and didn't push to get past Jody because he knew he had TQ'd. And I think that shows incredible maturity from such a young lad. He could have been, wanting to push on and go faster and thinking of himself, but he had the presence of mind to think about Jody and what was going on in his race. And I think that's incredible. It goes, stuff like that is missed in terms of what Finn's doing and why he should be F1. He shouldn't be where he is. But great maturity by Finn, and Jody stuck it in the A final, and good for him. Double A final for the weekend for Jody, both Saturday and Sunday. And I was over the moon. I was 9th on the grid. Scott Morton, Mark Jewett said the over 50 club, but Scott Morton stuck it in the A final. He had a great run in round 4. So I lined up 9th on the grid, and Scott was 10th. So it was another A final for me, which I was really pleased about. But again, wasn't overly happy. Great to make the A final, but I was a bit annoyed that the car was getting slower. It was the grip was coming up, and in round 2 or 3 the grip went really high, and it was really interesting on reflection of the stuff that I was seeing in the pits and what I was doing. And again, so I want to talk to you about that in a little bit. But so we went into the final, and there was a bit of a clatter on the first bend. So again, I was at the back of the field this time rather than being in the middle of the pack like I was on the Saturday. And there was a mistake, and I managed to drive through it all. There was a mistake on the first bend. There was cars everywhere. I saw the gap. I went through the gap, and I'm in 4th of the A final. And now all of a sudden, things a little bit more. Now it's like, oh, okay. And of course, I've had a little bit of a history of making mistakes, but without doubt, my buggy has made me way more accurate, I suppose, of how I drive. And the pack soon caught me up. I definitely knew that my car was not the fastest, just because I could tell by the lap times that I was doing. My hot lap was 13.5 in round 4, but it was only one lap, and the car was feeling, as I say, sluggish, and it felt like it was way too much bias to the rear. Motor was feeling boggy. It was horrible. Car felt horrible, really, but it was still going around, and I'm still going to be able to. It was easy to drive, and I think that's the point that worked in my favour. That the chasing pack now had all backed up behind me, and if you check out the video of the coverage, you'll see there was just a train going around behind me, which was really exciting. I mean, this is the moment, like, and again, we've talked about like being so super present and thinking about other stuff. Before the train had got to me, I was distracting myself. I was thinking about other things. I was conscious about, this is the A final, you're 4th now. This is great. Just keep looking at the track. What are we doing Monday? What's the wife up to? I was not involved with the lines, really. I was just trying to be as detached from it all and as present as I possibly could. And up they came, and there was Jodie behind me, and Mark Stiles was behind Jodie, I believe, and Mark got past Jodie, and then for, I don't know, 7 or 8 laps, 6, 7, 8 laps, I can't really remember what it was, Mark Stiles was trying to get past me, and it was my opportunity to not let someone that had so much experience, that is such a good driver, not get past me and make my car as wide as possible. And he was not getting past me. I was dogged in that, and he couldn't get past me. And so so what was happening is Matt Vara was coming around to lap me, and I could see that Mark was trying to hug, because I think the thing is, when you start racing, and with where I'm at the moment, I can actually look around the track at other stuff going on, which is surreal that that's actually possible. And I can see what's going on. And so I could see that Mark was trying to tag onto the back of Matt Vara, so that when I had to pull over for Matt Vara, Mark would come through as well, because obviously it'd be very difficult for me to only let Matt Vara through and not allow Mark to come through as well. So, but Mark made a mistake. I let Matt Vara through, and then Mark make another mistake, and I just carried on, and I finished 4th, which was, I felt more uncomfortable at the end, and I still had loads of room between where I was and the guy behind me. I think Adam Mackman was 4th, 5th, I believe. Again, he made a mistake. I think he had a coming together with Mark, but it was such a peaceful run. It was not. I didn't feel hurried by it. I didn't feel pressured by it. I was just conscious that 4th is good, but it's not what I came here for. I honestly came into this weekend believing I could have a podium in the A final, and I honestly believe that. And I'm that's just my agenda. I just want to be as good as I can. So it was a great weekend. It was fantastic. The car, X-Ray X12 22 car, and my contact tyres, T-foam, hobby my Trinity motor and lipo and all that kind of stuff. The only people that I get help from are RC Disco. I'm not a factory driver for X-Ray, and I'm not a factory driver for contact tyres. I get a bit of a discount on both, and that's it. All of the other stuff is sponsored by HSBC. So I use what I want to use, and I use the stuff that I believe is the best. So I think Trinity motors, the Trinity lipos are fantastic. The internal resistance is brilliant. The X Factor motors are just off the charts. The T-foam tyres, they work everywhere. They're great to use. They're simple. And if you can stick with one tyre and just run one tyre and build the car around one tyre, I think you're going to find the whole experience way much easier. And I use my Protoform body shell. Nobody's using a BMR. I just decided to use it because I liked the aero, or I liked what the shell looked like it was going to offer. And compared to the AMR, it's way better. I find it way better. Yeah, everyone's using an AMR, so I am very comfortable with sort of thinking outside the box. So that was my my experience of the weekend. Let's take a few questions. So we've got some thoughts coming in. So we've got Tibicar. Hi Stu, what do you think of the 13.5 Orca motor, and would the dragster bodywork on low grip asphalt? Unfortunately, the Tibicar, I have no experience of the Orca motor. And as for asphalt, I've never run on asphalt, and so I to be honest, buddy, I wouldn't be able to advise you with any certainty. And struggled with early edgy starts a few times. Yeah, I think we all have, haven't we? Ant. Sam CRC, I don't quite remember my dad saying that to me. I think I mentioned it to him at one point. No, if Sam Cole, yeah, he definitely mentioned it to you in the corridor walking back to the pits. He said to you, you will need 35 laps to get in the A final on Sunday. He absolutely said that to you. Alex Curry, your feed was great over the weekend. I was able to watch from Kuwait while I'm here with work. Alex, that's awesome. Glad the feed kept you in the loop with what's going on at the 12 scale nationals. That's super stuff. So on the back of the weekend, as I drove down the road, I thought about the whole additive thing, and it's really the only obstacle I see in this whole affair. I think getting product that is worthy of using, that's good, I think that's the first obstacle. And what I mean by product, I mean getting a motor that's worthy of running, getting a lipo that's worthy of running. I think those two are the things that are an obstacle for the likes of you and I. I buy multiple motors from Trinity, and I put together a motor that I believe to be as good as it can be. With the lipo, I'm subject to what I get sent, and that's the reality. When it comes to additive, this little pot that's on people's tables, who knows what goes on in there? I certainly don't do anything with my additive, but I have, who knows what goes on. And so that aside, because I certainly wouldn't want to suggest that anything untoward is going on in people's additive bottles. Certainly not saying that in any way, shape or form. But when I'm walking around the pits, and I was walking past Dave Spashit's table every time I walked to the track, and I was pumping my tyres. Everyone else was pumping my tyres, and I didn't see Dave pump his tyres once. And it makes me go, well, he's not. I mean, I've sat there for 2 days, and the best driver in the club is not pumping his tyres. So I'm obviously doing something wrong. I'm not using the same tyre as Dave. He was using the Hagbergs, and so what I did notice him doing was putting green on his rear. And look, ultimately we're all sitting there in the same room, and in touring car, just going to have some tea o'clock. We're sitting in the same room, and in touring car, I know for a fact there were certain people that will sit in a room and just watch the best drivers and just watch them when they put additive on. So I'm not doing anything different to anybody else. But you kind of, when someone's pumping their tyres, you hear them pumping their tyres. I mean, unless they're sort of going under their bench and sort of, pumping it under the bench, you're going to notice if they're pumping their tyres. And I was pretty keen on seeing what Dave's doing with his tyres, because he's the best driver in the Nationals, and I'm trying to learn in the best way I can, because if I ask anyone, I don't believe them, because I think there are too many people that have been racing for too long that don't really want to give away any secrets. And I'll tell you a perfect example of that. And again, this is no slant on who I'm just about to talk about, but I asked a representative of Schumacher about the contact foam tyres on the oil content in the tyres. And the answer was, we don't give away our oil content. So, well, why wouldn't you do that? I mean, it's a product, and I understand that that's competitive to another tyre, but why would you not give away that insight to make the experience and the knowledge of the driver that's using it to help them get better? They wouldn't tell me what the oil content is in J foam, Q foam, T foam, or anything like that. They wouldn't tell me, and so therefore I think that the whole tyre and the additive rituals that people go through, I think, are absolutely a huge part of when you start to get to the sharp end. And I'm not certainly saying, again, I know that if Adam Catchpole, Louis Parker, Alex Hagberg, Ollie Payne, all of those guys were there at the weekend, I would not have been in the A final. So I am under no illusion to say that I am A final grade, but I'm profiting from people not turning up. You can only race against who are there. So additive and how it's applied, particularly on the rear tyre, I believe is a huge trade secret that you can't get if you were to go up to someone and ask them what they're doing. I don't think that they would give you an honest answer. So you can only do what you can do in terms of look around the pits and view what others are doing. I didn't hear Mark Stiles pumping his tyres. I didn't hear Matt Vara pumping his tyres. I didn't hear Ben Vincent pumping his tyres. I wouldn't have seen the Schumacher guys because they were in a different room. So, but what I do know is that as my weekend was going on, at the start of the weekend, my car felt edgy to start with. So potentially I'm on the wrong tyre, because I think that's probably what that is. Because I was pumping my tyres for an hour in a vac pump on the rear, and then I went from it being edgy to now all of a sudden it felt like it was in syrup, and the motor felt lethargic, it felt stuck, and whereas when I was looking at and I was reffing the top heat on the Sunday because I got knocked down because obviously I didn't make the A final, and you obviously get adjusted and all that kind of stuff. And so I was reffing the top heat, and obviously my car's getting slower, and everybody else's car looked like they were coming alive. They looked every bit as quick and as nimble and quick with rotation and stuff like that. So I'm doing this. The only thing that I'm doing the same, other than all of the changes, are making my tyres come off and do the same thing. And of course, the black line is getting thicker and thicker and thicker. And someone actually commented on one of the feeds that if you fast forwarded the feed on the Saturday, I think it was the finals actually on the Saturday, if you fast forward it, hold the tab at the bottom and just move it through, you can see the black line come up. And so obviously what we're trying to do is we're trying to create friction between the tyre and the carpet. And at the start, both are dry, aren't they? I mean, the carpet's dry, the tyre's got additive in it, but there's not enough additive to create traction and slip and all the various things that I have no idea about that make the car go as fast as possible. Then what's happening is you're getting a carpet that's wet and starting to have more additive in it. And then my tyre is going on with every bit as much additive as it was at the start of the weekend. And of course, effectively, the car is now getting bogged down in too much grip, I suggest. And so one tyre at the start is trying to grab and grip, and then at the end it's grabbing and gripping too much and the car's getting slower. So when I then look at Dave, from what I saw with Dave, is he tried out a couple of different tyres on the Saturday. I think he might have tried 3 different tyres. He tried a Hagberg, a JFT, and I think might have tried 2 different JFTs. And then by the middle of the day on Saturday, all I could see was him putting green on his rear for 5 minutes. That's it. He had 2 pots on his table, but I never saw him. And if you've ever noticed Dave's pots, they're always a quarter full. They're never brand new and shiny. A quarter pot, and they're both on the table. Doesn't mean to say that he used both of them, but all I saw him doing all weekend was just putting green on with about 5 minutes to go. And so if I'm putting an hour's worth on the rear and he's putting 5 minutes on the rear, there's certainly an imbalance there of what I'm doing and what he's doing. Now, look, I might have it all completely wrong. He might be nipping off into the toilets, vacuum pumping his tyres, coming back, sticking it under the table and doing it his own thing. He might be doing that. That might be his gig, to hide what he does with his tyres. I don't know. But all I could see was it looked as though every time I walked past his pit table, I couldn't see his rear tyres wet at the same time as when mine was putting on. And his rears were never off and then put on. They were always on the rear of his car. Whereas my car always had my rears off because they're always in the vacuum pump. So the whole point of talking about this is, I think as you get better, obviously additive and what you're trying to do with your car has to go in hand with the additive. And as I say, I think that I don't think there's a clear understanding of what additive does. I don't think there's a clear understanding of what tyres you should be using. I think there is so much that is going on with additive, that different drivers are doing different things, that you would never truly get an answer. So I'm putting out there is that additive is a huge tuning tool. And of course, at a national, if you go out and you're additive and you're trying something at a national, because the reality is, if you're at a national, the grip level at a national is in a different league to that compared to a club meet. It's incomparable, so you can't test it. And that's when I've heard people say, I'm going testing with my 12 scale. What are you testing, man? I mean, there's 15 of you running round and the grip is so low compared to when you're going to go to a national when the grip is super high. There is no correlation. You get an idea about setup changes, but you can't actually test the differences in grip and additive times and all that kind of stuff. So I think that having an opportunity to go to a national and then start to have a fiddle around with your additive and not change anything on your car is quite a big deal. And I think where I'm at, I'm fortunate now that nuts and bolts, I'm in a place with the setup of the car between Chesterfield and Tamworth, because they're fundamentally the same carpet. There's not going to be too much difference. So Chesterfield is going to give a bit more of an opportunity to have a play around with additive. There's been a few things coming through on the chat. Let's see what people are saying. Trevor Colt, Sam just did a second dose of blue on T-foam rears. He didn't want to try green or pump. It worked for him. Yes, it did. Simon Mao, blue and then green just before. Yep. That's what I was doing. Seen that before. I got asked about my additive as I was trying SXT 3.0 Max. Chris Lemon, for 17.5 here in the US, there is a spec tyre and source. Yeah, spec tyres, well, that's a whole topic for discussion, that one, Chris. Not sure that necessarily is the way I would want it to go in the UK, spec tyre, and but spec source, I think, personally, at nationals, I think there should be one additive that we should use. I think that would be a way forwards for it all. But look, I'm not suggesting anything that goes on untoward with additive. I just think that if you've been in the hobby for a very long time and you've been around the block for a very long time, I think you have greater insight. And I would never ask someone what they're doing. I would never ask a good driver what they're doing with their additive, because I don't believe that I'll get the right answer, or I would get the answer. And I'm not calling them all liars. I'm just thinking that if they've put in the time and they put in the effort to find a process and a system of their additive that works for them, then why would they want to give it away? I, on the other hand, I'm all about making people enjoy it better and go faster. And if someone drives faster than me, they drive faster than me. But outside of that, I would always share everything that I'm doing, as I do on this channel. I have nothing to hide, and I want everyone to get as much out of this hobby as they possibly can. And I just think that it's certainly something that I have not spent enough time on. And I think this weekend showed me that I think that the additive is something that I need to spend more time doing. I'm strict with my timings, but I'm not strict at how I evolve with my timings over a weekend. What it looks like at the start, what it looks like in the middle, what it looks like at the end. And I think that is certainly something that I need to get better at to progress and to keep getting faster, because I've looked at my lines on my on the feed, and my lines are every bit as good as a Mark Styles, without doubt. But what I am conscious of, that my car is going slower and everyone else is going faster, and I think there's a bit more to it than just motors and lipos. So I think there's certainly something there that I want to investigate a bit more with timings of additives and all that kind of stuff. So that pretty much rounds up my experiences of the weekend, and I think the takeaway for the weekend for me was having now settled on one car, and having settled with the X-Ray X1222 car, I am in a place where it feels like I can move around the car and have a better idea of what I need to do to make the car go better. And this spool business, what we've talked about quite a lot, is making you think outside the box a little bit. And ultimately, if your car's difficult to drive, invariably with these spools, because the car is rolling, the rear wheel has to be put on the floor, and if the rear wheel is not on the floor, the car is going to be really difficult to drive. And I think knowing your car and what you need to do to make that happen is really, really a good feeling, knowing that, again, I can go to a national at Chesterfield, which is the next one in a few weeks' time, with a solid setup that's in the ballpark, and almost not do anything to it and just let the grip evolve. Because again, didn't see Dave doing much in terms of changing his car. It just kept on bolting wheels on it and going round and letting the grip change, and and just driving faster. And I think there is so much to be said for that, but you've got to be in the ballpark with your setup before you go out. And I think that's certainly where I'm at with my car. I know mentally I can cope with being harassed by a good driver, Mark Styles, and I know that I can, for 8 minutes, get my head down and do well. So I've got everything that I need in my pocket to do as well as I can do. It's now about just making sure that I'm just a bit more on top of the additive, and just keep firing out some practice with the cones. We're going to be doing another practice day before the weekend of the National. I'm going to probably do a little bit of practice on Saturday this weekend as well. Eden Park usually opens up on a Saturday, so I might go down there and do a little bit of practice with the buggy just outside. Hopefully it's wet, and no doubt it will be wet, and get some more work done. But right now I've got the car apart. She is stripped. There it is. She's stripped, making sure everything is flat and checked and ready to go. I always strip my cars down after a race meeting, take all the oils out and put it all back together, dry it, and then sort of the week before the National, I'll then start to maybe just have another quick check over it, and then day of the National, that's when I'll let up at the track. But if we've got any more questions, feel free to fire them over. But that pretty much rounds up this week's debrief. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. I enjoy sort of letting off some steam, sharing what I experienced at the National and at these weekends. Hope you enjoy them as well. There's 25 of you watching, so tonight I think we tapped into 33 people watching, which is the most ever. So I'm going to keep doing these weekend debriefs because I think I get a lot out of them, and hopefully you get a little bit out of them as well. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments box below, and I will do my best to answer as many of them as I possibly can. It'd be really, really good. There's 26 of you watching. If you could hit that like button, it is absolutely free. And if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe to the channel. As ever, I really appreciate all your support, all the kind messages that you guys send me along the way. I love this hobby and I want to keep on growing it. So that's it for me. Thanks for watching. And if I don't see you beforehand, I'll see you trackside soon.